Adobe, Kixeye, and today I'm going to be talking to you about low budget and zero budget game development. So sometimes budget decisions are a little bit more difficult than that when you're looking at ways to save money in general. I think everyone can agree you gotta definitely cut out that rent number, priorities, right? So yeah, zero budget or just game development for significantly lower budgets than you would expect. Game development has a lot of areas, obviously art, tech, etc. And the expenses can add up really quickly. So we're going to look at how we can save as much money as possible and really get a high quality product out of it. First of all, for code, there are tons of resources in previous talk today. If you checked out Mike Mood's talk, shout out, of course. You can get a lot of assets from the Unity Asset Store and then remix, reuse as needed, as well as getting a lot of open source code from sources like GitHub, Reddit, as well as forums. There's massive communities out there for pretty much any major engine that you're using. If you're using Unreal or using Unity, you can really get started very, very quickly, assuming you have some basic level of programming knowledge or skill. But if you don't, we'll get to that later. And of course, after code, you have to think about art. So in terms of getting art, you can obviously learn to make your own 3D models, or you can source art assets from sites. There's numerous 3D model databases that offers models, textures, etc. under Creative Commons licenses, so you can reuse, remix, and just make use of them in your games and in your smaller projects as well. Not necessarily the highest quality models, but some very good for base creation. So making kind of simple proof of concept games for game jams and that sort of thing, and then potentially later replacing them with higher quality models once you acquire funding and acquire more experienced artists, assuming you're building a game with a team. And then additionally, as well as kind of the 3D models and textures that you would find on 3D model sites, you can also access a massive number of animations, so literally thousands of motion capture, high quality animations for free or for very low cost using Adobe Mixamo. And normally it costs thousands of dollars to record motion capture. And not only that, Mixamo offers support for Unity out of the box. So you can just bring in those high quality recorded interactions into Unity instead of having to go through a tedious process of animation. As anyone who's done animation knows, it's a very, very long, tedious process to go through to create anything that looks remotely good, so that can save you a huge amount of time. And this comes to the part that probably I've focused on the most because indie devs automatically think, well, they think marketing, they think advertising often. They think, OK, I need to buy ads. Marketing is just those banner ads on the sides of websites, right? That you see for like Game of War or whatever. It's really not that, and you can do a lot with very, very little. And first of all, I'd like to look at fan-powered marketing. So companies that have done this include Discord. Many of you are probably familiar. Raise your hands if you've heard of Discord. OK, that's pretty much everyone. That's great. Awesome. So yeah, Discord makes use of fan-powered marketing by providing merchandise, promotional material, etc. to fans on the condition that these fans go out to conferences and basically give out this merchandise and act as brand ambassadors. So they're basically doing your marketing work for you for very, very low cost, and you're also improving their loyalty as a fan. If you get free stuff from a company, you like that company more, you're going to be more likely to promote their product and further adoption of it. And as you can see by the fact that everyone in the room has heard of Discord, evidently it's working quite effectively. As well as that, you can make use of a lot of free trials and free tiers of various marketing apps and services. So stuff like analytics tools and timing tools for Twitter, scheduling tweets, really kind of making your social media strategy a lot smoother. There's tons of free trials available and free assets available for that, as well as plenty of free advice on various sites. Just general marketing advice can obviously be applied to games as well, and that can be exceptionally useful. In addition to that, you can also often find like welcome codes, promo codes for various services that can give you significant discounts. Whenever you're buying any online service or software, I highly recommend searching for promo codes because it really costs them nothing to lower your price significantly. So you can get up to 50 to 70% off because it really is just like hosting costs for their service. So they can really deeply discount that if you get a code. And if you, for example, Google Ads promo codes, you can literally get free Google ad placements, which can bring in a lot of players and then subsequently just kind of build up your fan base. In addition to that, obviously, social media marketing is entirely free. It's what you'd think of as posting to Twitter screenshots of your game, using appropriate hashtags, and interacting with communities on Reddit, Imgur, etc. Obviously, Facebook, too, to a lesser extent. And just kind of that's the free marketing that everyone thinks of when they think of kind of low-cost marketing. And then in addition to that, automated marketing. So for example, in our project, we have a set of scripts set up that will basically automatically take a few screenshots and then send them for review over Skype. And then Skype, once you select the best-looking screenshot, it'll automatically post that screenshot to Twitter of our game. So it's basically like every day you could be posting a fresh, high-quality screenshot to kind of increase the buzz and increase awareness of your game without even having to really think about it. Marketing without thinking about it, it's great, it's very fast, it's very efficient. And then, of course, what would a game be without design? You can do a lot with very little with design. You can get a huge amount of data on how to best design your game from your players and from analytics. And a lot of smaller studios, a lot of indies don't use analytics. I think that's a real shame because it's extremely powerful and it's used extensively by what you think of Game Award. The very big mobile studios use it because it's about optimizing every aspect of your game down to the last detail. And basically, even if you're not a great designer, you can make a good game with analytics because you can see where players are messing up, you can see where players want to explore but can't explore, and you can basically change your game to suit what the player finds interesting, and basically just develop your game using that high-quality data. And then additionally, you can also figure out what, for example, character designs people like the most, what characters they choose the most. Blizzard, for example, would use this in Overwatch to see what characters people are choosing and figure out, well, why aren't people choosing one character over another character? It's very powerful, and very, very few indies use this. As well, there are many free tools like Game Analytics and Unity Analytics, although Unity Analytics is kind of overpriced and not as good as the other free services. And then in addition to that, other than analytics, there's also design contests. So if you need any graphic design, any logo art, any of that stuff, you can run a design contest on any number of design contest sites, such as 99 Designs, and basically get a lot of great design submissions, and then you can just choose from the best, get an amazing-looking logo for like 50 or 100 bucks, as well as just fonts and all of that sort of thing. And that can save you a considerable amount of money just establishing a nice branding presence. It also applies to stuff like web design, getting a really nice website up and running, as well as, in addition to that, that relates to freelancers, working with freelancers to come up with logo design, graphic design, as well as contests. So if contests are not necessarily working for you for specific, very specific aspects of design, you can just hire freelancers to do that extra design, kind of go that extra mile. And of course, before you can dive into doing design and art and code, you really need to sort of know what you're doing. And fortunately, as Mike said in his talk earlier, Google is your friend. I'm focusing more so on specific sites that actually are geared towards educating you as a university or college would without any cost whatsoever to you. So Coursera, for example, has really, really high quality programs on UI design. So a game can sink or fail based on the quality of its controls and UI. Nobody likes playing a game with poor controls and poor UI. And courses on game design, et cetera, that sort of thing. Pretty much anything you want to learn, you can take a high quality free course. And Coursera, their business model basically operates on certificates. So if you want a certificate of completing the course, you have to pay. But if you just want to learn it, it's absolutely free. You can just learn all the information absolutely free. As well, Khan Academy is a great resource mainly for refreshing existing skills that you may have forgotten since high school. So math, stuff like physics, that sort of thing. And then in addition to that, there's also lynda.com, which lynda.com is a premium option. You normally have to pay for it. But many libraries have partnered with lynda.com. So for example, the Ottawa Public Library, if you have a library card, you get full access to thousands of video tutorials on lynda.com, including tutorials on how to use Unity, how to make 3D models, how to do UI design, how to market, and including one series featuring John Romero, who actually tells you how to start your own business. I think he's probably better at that than making games of Dekatanas and but yeah, there's millions of options out there for learning a lot about creating every aspect of video games. And then once you've kind of got your studio up and running, you got your code, your art, your design, you're skilled in many of these areas, or at least one of these areas, you kind of want to move and grow into your own space. And fortunately, nowadays there's options like co-working. Kind of my philosophy is use limited or as little office space as possible, like only use it if you need it. Fortunately, there are many services that offer very flexible office space. So for example, 1 year when we went to PAX, we rented out office space for 6 hours at, I think it was $30 an hour, and had a great view of the downtown. And that's like $180 there. And we just used that time to talk to press and YouTubers and reach out to fans. We like bought pizza and like kind of made a fan meetup there. And the value we got out of that was extremely powerful, because it really conveys a lot of legitimacy to have an office that people can go to and visit and interact with you at. And of course, in addition to that, working from home is obviously generally the most cost-effective option. However, I would strongly encourage having regular meetups in person to ensure kind of team spirit. It's really important. You don't want to feel like you're just isolated when you're on a team, and that can happen with remote teams. It's very important to watch out for. So you've got your game, you know how to market it, you have all the services you need, but you also need some kind of web presence so your fans can go there, they can interact, they can have a forum, they can kind of just build a community. So you're going to want a website, and fortunately you can get web hosting entirely free using Microsoft BizSpark or Imagine. Now, basically the way it works is they think that once you sign up for their free tier, eventually you're going to be fairly profitable, and then move on to their premium tier and not move to another service. So they're very, very generous with their free tier. So they basically give out hundreds of dollars worth of free web hosting every month. It sounds like a giveaway, but it's basically you just sign up for their plan, you get like $300 worth of credit per month to spend on hosting your site, and that can go a long way. That could support thousands of visitors to your website every day. And this distinct difference between BizSpark and Imagine is BizSpark is, once you're incorporated, you can use that. And Imagine is if you're a student or kind of just starting out, you can use that. And obviously Imagine gives less than the business tier, but they're both entirely free. And as well as that, you also get free Microsoft software such as Visual Studio Enterprise, which is really handy, like among other tools. It's great. It's great to have. So you've got your game coded, you've got your art, you've got your marketing, you've got your website, you've got your presence, you've got office space if you need it, and you've done all this on a very, very low budget. And so as I started talking about tools, these are some of the tools that we've used and that I would recommend strongly. All of them are free or have free tiers. So for example, for project storage, we use Bitbucket and Unity Collaborate. So Bitbucket is basically a fancy, more technical version of Dropbox. I'm sure if I asked who is familiar with Dropbox, everyone would raise their hand. It's very, very, very powerful, and basically has pretty high free storage amounts. I think it's several gigabytes, which is probably more than you need for a small project. And then in addition to that, you need kind of a way to communicate among your teams. So we generally use Discord, which you can also hook up to various interactions. So you could potentially hook up Discord to your game and have like bug reports or crash reports flowing into Discord, which is what we've done. as well as stuff like Twitter mentions can flow into Discord or Slack, which is very, very handy. Additionally, we do use Skype because everyone's on Skype if they're not on Discord, kind of a necessary evil. And in addition to that, for file storage, we use Mega, which offers 50 gigabytes of free file storage, and it's encrypted, which is pretty much the best offer out there. And for task management, we use Trello and MeisterTask. And MeisterTask basically just has a great import functionality from Trello, so we just use that as a free backup service for Trello, because otherwise you have to pay $25 a user, I think, to back up your projects on Trello. So that's one way we saved a lot there. And then, of course, there's also travel. And travel is generally something you think of as being the most expensive part of producing and marketing an indie game. And that is generally true, unfortunately. But you can save a lot by working with other people. And by that I mean, hopefully some of you have friends. If you don't, I highly recommend getting some. They're really great. So you can often save a lot of money by traveling with friends. So for example, carpooling, as well as staying with friends with Airbnbs. Sharing an Airbnb can save you a lot versus a hotel. Hostels as well are an inexpensive option. For example, with GDC, they have kind of an indie hostel, where all the indie developers stay in this one hostel, and it's this awesome experience, a lot of camaraderie and that kind of thing. And then there's options as well, sort of once you've further advanced past PAX East, which is kind of what I was getting at with the kind of close, because you don't really want to drive to San Francisco for GDC. So obviously for PAX East, Airbnb and hostels and like driving down or taking a train or bus down is a great way to save money. But for going to GDC, I'd highly recommend Train Jam. It's experience where you basically get to go on a train with other devs and make games well on your way to San Francisco for GDC. And it sells out really quickly, but I highly recommend it. And then when it comes down to it, saving money when traveling really just means being able to share with other people, so whether it's sharing accommodation, sharing transport there, or just kind of just figuring out where you can spend less by using resources that you may already have and don't realize. Also, I highly recommend going to PAX East. It's a great experience. Okay, and of course, last but not least, in terms of components of a game, you really also need sound effects and music. And fortunately, they're really easy to get. You can find a ton of great royalty-free and freely licensed sound effects and music online. There are tons of databases for those sorts of things. And additionally, what's great is you can remix, reuse, etc. of these various resources. So you can download a track and just kind of work with it, adapt it to your game or whatever, and use it. And the same goes with sound effects. Sound effects obviously are a little bit more personal. So often we use sound effects that are free as placeholders, and then we kind of get our sound effects guy to produce replacements for them. But it's very handy for testing. Just it's really amazing how much having sound effects changes how your game feels. And that's why I'd highly recommend prototyping with sound effects. Even just free ones can go a long way. As well with music, music changes the feel of the game so much. Like one of the first things I do when I make a game, when I have a main menu, is add a nice background track for the main menu. Can really go a long way as well. This type of music and sound effects can also be used in promotional materials. So for example, YouTube videos for your YouTube channel, videos on your Twitter, Vine, aka Vines, but they're not Vines anymore. And just use that in marketing material. So having a nice, really memorable track for a trailer. And additionally, in addition to remixing stuff and using royalty-free stuff, there's also the option of regional stuff. So for example, Pulse, which is a mobile game that won Apple's, I think, #1 game of like 2014, used entirely artists from the Philadelphia area because that's where they were based. And they didn't pay them anything. They just had each artist make one track or leveraged an existing track they'd already made. And ultimately, that game won awards for its score, and it also kind of connected that studio to the Philadelphia community and kind of made it interconnected. Yeah, so there's a lot of flexibility with music and sound effects, and it's going to be probably one of the easiest areas of your project because there's so much free stuff out there to use. And last but not least, a discussion of low-budget game development wouldn't be complete without a short primer on funding. Now, our previous talk was all about funding, but this is kind of just a general look at some. I don't think that was mainly kind of government funding focused, I believe, or kind of going to banks. So this is more just all of your funding options. Crowdfunding, so stuff like Patreon and Kickstarter are very, very valuable, very powerful. Equity-based funding. So that can be sites that basically allow you, instead of getting a reward from crowdfunding, you get basically shares from backing a project. And those are growing in popularity and were used for Double Fine's Psychonauts 2 used a site that allowed that. And they had a huge amount of success doing so because they don't have to ship out physical rewards. They just have to give you equity. And then hopefully the game makes money and you get money back. And that's kind of really growing in the US because of relatively recent laws that enabled that to happen. Additionally, you've got your traditional routes of publishers and investors. I mean, you can get a lot of funding if you have a nice-looking game, and you're not too niche. You know, it has to be marketable, of course. And then, in addition to that, one area a lot of people forget about is content production, and content production can really make you a lot of money if you do it well. For example, devlog videos. If you're making a game in an area where there may not be that many devlog videos of games like it, or where you're kind of getting the community invested from the very start. So you're doing something like a Kickstarter to get a lot of fan interest initially, and then building from that. So for example, the game Yandere Simulator, notorious for being banned by Twitch, each video devlog uploaded by the creator of Yandere Simulator gets over 1 million views. 1 million views per devlog, 15-minute video, just him talking over a bunch of, like a slideshow of screenshots of the game, and it gets 1 million views per video. And that's a lot of money in YouTube dollars. Now, you're probably not going to get that with your game, but there is potential to actually earn a reasonable amount of money just uploading videos of your game, talking about your game and talking about the development process. You just need to have an audience initially and kind of build that audience over time, just like any YouTube effort. But you have the benefit of being able to develop your game and basically create your own content for yourself, as opposed to, say, if you're a Let's Player, you need to find new and interesting games to cover. You can basically give yourself infinite exclusives if you're making your own game. And then last but not least, government sources, so tax credits and that sort of thing, which were covered quite extensively in the last talk. And that's just about perfect. I've left us 5 minutes for questions. So if anyone has any questions about specifics, there are a lot of details and specifics. I tried to kind of cut this down as much as possible and make it just kind of the bare points that you need. I can go into any specifics on any aspect of these various slides. So yeah, ask away. Okay, so that's a good question. The question was basically, if you don't have a budget, how do you find people to work with if you can't pay people? And the answer to that really is to kind of look within your existing communities. Chances are you can probably find someone at one of these local uni groups. For example, the uni group, the Dirty Rectangles, any kind of local meetup, you can probably find someone who would be willing to work with you and share profits once you release something. Additionally, there are Reddit communities such as /r/game dev classifieds, which has a lot of options both for paid and kind of team-based rev share work where neither of you have any money starting out, but you agree to split the profits upon release. And that can get you a lot of interest, and that's how we've developed some of our titles. So there's really just a lot, and as well as uni forums, just general communities for game dev and game engines. You can often find people to collaborate with who understand that you don't have a budget, because they don't have a budget either. Any other questions?
Yeah, right here. You talk about using a lot of free assets, but how do you go about making sure that there's the right, in terms of copyright infringement, you're not going to infringe on something?
So that's a good question. So basically it was, if you're using free assets, how do you determine whether they are freely licensed or whether you can use them without potentially running into copyright issues? We have a policy, and I think this is kind of the best way to do it, is if we don't know the license of something, even if it's free, we don't use it except occasions for prototyping. We can never release something with something we don't absolutely know the license of. Often on free 3D model sites, you will have a little icon or whatever that will show the type of license, the version of that license. So for example, Creative Commons version 3.0, redistributable or whatever. And if you see that, you know you're pretty good to use that. But again, there are some sites that just offer free models. And if you just see that, it's really hard to know whether you could actually use that in a commercial product. So thanks, that's a good question. Any other questions? OK, so yeah, I kind of spoke quickly over that, I think. So the tools for analytics that I'd recommend would be Game Analytics is the best tool. It's just one word, Game Analytics. It's kind of the flagship tool for using analytics. In addition to that, Unity Analytics is decent, but it is, I would say, for what you get, it's not the cheapest option. And again, we're talking about low budget game dev here. As well, you can also leverage Google Analytics, which is popular, but it's not meant to be used in games. You can make it work in games because it is a very powerful analytics system. But I would say first and foremost, go with Game Analytics, unless you really, for some reason, dislike it. Also, Game Analytics is entirely free unless you're a massive enterprise making millions of dollars. Thanks. Any other questions? OK, then. I think we're good. Thank you very much.